Welcome back to doing more movement that's focused on how you feel as you move and to work on building that body awareness to reconnect with ourselves as we move and decide how many we want to do, if we want to do an alternative option, or maybe reposition or adjust different parts of our body in different ways, in different ranges of motion to figure out what feels most comfortable and most at ease while also building proprioception and interoception. Let's get started today. We're going to be using a chair. This is a stationary chair, so it's not on wheels. And this is a folding chair. You could use a chair around your house or even the side of a couch. Whatever you use, it needs to be something that's sturdy and works for you. So you can try out other props around your house. This is a folding chair. It works well, but I don't like to sit on these for long periods of time unless I have some sort of a cushion. So just know that whatever sort of prop you would like to bring, that's always welcome. So my name is Rachel from RAD Pilates, and we're gonna get started with some adaptive chair Pilates, focusing on some pre-Pilates and Pilates-based movements before moving into a little bit of mat work that we can expand on later. So let's start standing. I'm gonna have the chair in front of me. I'm standing with maybe a little bit wider than my hips, bigger base. Checking in with where I'm weighted on the front of my toes, the back of my heels. And then I like to roll my shoulders a couple times, notice where my gaze is, and I'm gonna start with my head, but at the same time, I'm also gonna do a little bit of bend at the knee, hips, and ankles, and then my head's rounding forward. My shoulders, rib cage is coming down to a place where I can reach the chair. So I have my hands on the chair. I'm gonna let my head tuck a little bit more. And then from here, I'm gonna bend at my knees and hips a little bit, redistribute my weight back on my feet, and stand back up. We can let our arms swing to the side, or we can lift them up as we stand. Let's do what works for us in the moment. From here, I'm gonna be lifting up and over, rounding down, getting a little bit of bent knee, checking out how that feels to my body. And then from here, I'm gonna unwind, letting my sits bones widen away from each other. My head is lifting, the front of my chest, my gaze is forward. I'm going into my extension, and then I'm gonna round into my flexion. I'm gonna move between those movements a few more times, noticing what the range feels like for me. And then I'm checking in with my wrists and my hands. Maybe this doesn't feel very good. So I could always go down to my forearms, pressing my forearms and hands in. I could always bring a yoga block and lift myself up. I could do this on a higher surface, noticing what I need in the moment and adjusting as I see fit. I'm going to redistribute onto my feet, stand back up. Taking a moment here, we're gonna come back down and do some alternating of the leg just to check out how things feel as we move. I'm gonna round down again. I'm gonna come down on my hands, but I can always come down to my forearm as well. I think I might try both. I think it's good to try both. I'm gonna bring one leg back, tucking that toe under, reaching through that heel, the back of this posterior leg line. And I'm lifting up. I have my extended spine moment. I have pressure on these toes as well as this front foot. And I'm taking a moment here. I can reach my arm up, bring my gaze with that arm, reach it back, and then back down. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other arm, reaching it up and back, and then coming forward. This leg is gonna come back underneath me. I'm gonna round and stand up for a moment. Inhaling, exhale, rounding down. Head's going to lift, the other leg goes back. From here, I'm gonna take a moment in the shape, just decide how I feel. I'm gonna lift one arm up, reaching back, lower that arm down. Other side, lifting that arm up, reaching back, bring my gaze with, arm coming back down. Taking a moment here, I'm gonna bring the leg back underneath me, round, stand back up for a moment. Notice how you feel, roll the shoulder back. This time I'm gonna come down and I'm gonna go onto my forearms. You could always leave your arms long if you'd like. I'm gonna round and come down. I'm coming down on my forearms, so I'm bending at my hips, my knees, and my ankles a lot. And then I'm gonna check out what it'd be like to bring one heel back at a time. What is this like if you tried the arms in length? What is it like with the bent arms? And if you'd like to add on to it, bring one leg back and then the other. Notice where your gaze is. Bring your legs back underneath you, round, coming back up. Taking a moment from here, we're gonna come down to kneeling, and I just noticed that I didn't have any cushion, and I need cushion. So I'm gonna grab some cushion. So you can always use a mat. I grabbed this seat cushion. I'm gonna have it down to the side, and then I'm gonna stand over it for a moment. I'm coming back down, and this time I'm gonna bend one knee, bring one knee all the way down, bring the other knee all the way down. Now I have both knees down. I could let the front end of my shin and the tops of my feet down, or I can leave tucked under. Notice how they feel. Choose the one that feels more comfortable to you. And then from here, I'm gonna come down onto my forearms again and go into my extension and flexion. What is this extension and flexion like compared to when we were in the more standing up position with our hips bent forward, flexing? Is this different? Is it better? Is it the same? Checking in with what our body is bringing as awareness. And then from here, I'm gonna stack up and I'm gonna reface forward. I have my chair to the side of me. I have my knees underneath me. I'm still pressing down with my shins. This time we're gonna go into some side bends. I'm gonna bring this hand down and the other hand up, coming up and over. This forearm's actually gonna come down to give me a little bit of extra. My palm is facing up. I'm getting some oppositional force down here, pressing to get that arc over, breathing into that. Stacking up. Let's go into a counter stretch. And then back up. Side bend over. You can bring your palm facing up. Do what works for you. And then stacking up. And then this time when we go into that side bend, let's bring this leg up. See what that's like, and then we'll leave the leg there when we go into our counter stretch. Stack back up. So let's face the other way. You could always move this to the other side. I guess I can do that. And then, so we're repositioned to the other side. We're coming down into that side bend. Maybe palm is facing up. Notice where the stretch is for you. Stacking back up, counter stretch. And then back up, arcing over, stacking up again, counter stretch. This time, we're gonna bring that leg up. If we'd like to, remember everything is optional. We don't have to do anything unless we feel like it. And we can take a break or do something else at any moment. And then let's stack back up. So from here, we're gonna come seated into the chair. So I'm gonna face the chair and I'm gonna bring my knees underneath me. I'm gonna get rid of this pad. And I'm also gonna bring that forward. So we're gonna be sitting in the chair. I'm gonna take a moment for you to see this side angle. What is it like to be in this position? So for me, I need to be a little bit forward to get my feet on the ground. If I'm back, my feet are just, my heels don't reach the floor. So for me, I need to be a little bit forward. This is what works for my body. As you're adjusting, it's going to look and feel differently for you than it is for me. And that's because we have different needs and preferences, and all of those are valid. And through iteration, we figure out what those are. So from here, I have my pelvis, that's what I'm sitting on, wide. And then I have my rib cage over that, shoulders, head. not forcing this alignment. This is where my alignment is. And then from here, let's do the flexion and extension and see how that is. So I'm gonna round my back, round my head forward, and then I'm going to come into my extended spine. I bring my gaze with my movement, and then rounding and stacking up. I move through my neutral-ish into an extended spine, and then back. Maybe two more, and I'm really over-exaggerating mine. If this is a micro movement, that's wonderful. Micro movements are ultimately the best thing because that micro movement of repositioning and adjusting is what we're after. So if there's a smaller range, welcome that smaller range. I think it's a really wonderful thing, especially because I sometimes go into a range that's not necessarily comfortable for me, but it might look cool, but really I'm going into a place where I might actually bother something. So I always check in with my range of motion and notice what's comfortable to me as I'm moving that day because it changes over time. So from here, we're gonna go into our thoracic rotation. So we're rotating from our rib cage. I like to think about my lowest floating a little bit above that ribs as I move. I'm keeping my face in line with the front of my body. And then for me, I like to bring my hands behind the head and then keep my elbows a little bit in my peripheral, but you can always bring the hands down here. So we're rotating at that thoracic and then going the other way. Inhaling and exhaling. I'm gonna switch up my breath. That was a lot. So with this one, I think it's important to do because it can kind of free up some space and get that T-spine movement that a lot of us are after, whether we know it or not. And so as we're here, we're gonna end up doing something with that shape again and bending forward, but let's take a moment. Let's go into our side bends. So we're gonna reach our arm up and bring it over. So we were just doing side bends, but what makes these ones different is I'm gonna press my arm down and I'm gonna reach my arm back and I'm getting this thoracic rotation, but it's extending my spine up and back. And then, even though I'm still in my side bend over, I'm gonna round and flex forward and extend back and flex forward and extend back and flex forward and extend back. I'm gonna come up and over through center and then arch and side bend the other way. And then that arm goes back, rounding forward, arcing back, rounding forward, and again, and one more. Stacking and coming all the way back up. So from here, let's focus on what's happening with our feet, with our ankles. We're gonna alternate lifting up a heel. Toes are still down, toes are connected, and then lowering, other heel lifts. So we're going between those, prancing, back and forth. We can keep our arms up in front of us, or to the side, or behind our head, wherever it feels comfortable to us in the moment. And then from here, let's go to one toes down, one heel's up, and then lift, lower that down, other side. These are always just optional and suggestions. We don't have to do this. If this doesn't work for us, let's go back to lifting heels and alternating. If you'd like, you can do the leg lifts. And this is gonna be a little bit harder for me, so I'm gonna put my arms down so I can get a little bit of opposition. I'm gonna lift both heels at the same time. Press the toes down, lift both heels, lift both heels, lift and lower, and then from here, I'm gonna round back a little bit, see if I can lift up. So for me, I have the chance to sort of lift up with more of my hips or more of the front of my body. I'm gonna use my inhale, exhale to help me. Inhale, prep, exhale. Maybe two more, and then last one. It's a lot. At least it was for me. So from here, I'm gonna have my arms up. I'm gonna reach my arm forward and then back. So I'm getting that same sort of thoracic rotation, but now I'm not adding that extension in flexion. And then we're gonna switch. Other side, reaching back. I like to take my gaze with my hand because then it brings my neck into some of this mobility work as well. And then from here, maybe a couple sweeps backwards. So we have a lot of options. We don't have to have our hands behind our head at all. We can leave our hands down here. We could have our hands to our side. We could even put them here. I mean, this is kind of weird, but my point is you can do anything with your hands. You don't have to do what I'm cueing. I'm bringing my hands behind my head. My elbows are in my peripheral vision, but then I'm softening my shoulders down my back. From here, I'm gonna inhale, exhale, round my upper body forward, and then stacking back up. So these are like doing some sort of an ab curl head lift on the ground, but we're in an upright chair. So it's a little bit different, more like a roll down, lowering and lifting back up. Inhale, prep, exhale, round. Stacking back up and over. Maybe going for 2 more if that feels okay to you. This next one, if you'd like to hold that shape for a moment, you can go to switching the heels back and forth. Lifting back up. This next one, we're gonna come rounding over, but our arms are already gonna be by the side of us. We're gonna do a sort of 100 prep. We're not gonna roll through all of it. We're gonna round our head forward, let our arms go. From here, we're gonna start letting our arms press down and forward slightly, keeping that engagement in the lat serratus. Checking out what that's like. We're gonna inhale for 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. And coming back up at your own pace. Taking a moment here. We're gonna turn our head side to side. Our chest, the front of our body is facing forward. We're moving from the neck. And then we're gonna drop the front of our neck, bring our gaze down, even though the rest of our spine is upright. Looking up, maybe we look back, and then forward, and back, and forward. Once you're looking back upright, side to side, we're gonna add some circles. We're gonna bring the gaze up, going all the way over and down. Go the other way. These aren't the best thing if you already have issues with being dizzy, like myself. So whenever I do certain things like that, I'm like, okay, give me a second. Okay, let's take a moment here. We're gonna go into some roll down seated. So I'm widening my seat so I have more space between my legs to go down. From here, I'm gonna reach my arms up just to be a little bit more dramatic and fun, rounding down. If it feels okay, bring your hands down. You could always bring a stool or something up higher, or do this next to something that's a little bit lower so you can bring your elevation up with your hands. Taking a moment here, inhale, exhale, round and come back up. And again, inhale, reaching up and over, arcing, hands come to the floor. If you can, let the crown of your head point down and shake your head no. Just let it go. No lifting. We have a tendency to try to lift our head because we want to hear or see something. Let it go. Let it go. Maybe we can create some traction. Taking another breath. Stacking up. And then inhale, exhale, rounding over. This time we can lift one arm up, reaching that up. Bring that back down, other side, reaching that up. Maybe you do one more each. Maybe you walk your hands a little bit forward and get sort of a little bit of that flexion and extension moment. Stacking back up, bring your hands down, Maybe a couple rolling of the shoulders back. From here, I'm bringing my legs back in front of me because I'm gonna do some prep work with lifting my legs. This might not be appropriate for you. You can always try it out and see how that goes, or move back to the heel lifts or some of the other work that we have done, or make a couple attempts, or even watch the work and breathe with us. Sometimes that is just as, actually it is just as impactful. Let's be real. So if you'd like to do this next part, that's really up to you. Like everything else, everything is a suggestion, and it's open for you to decide if you want to do or not. This specifically just might not work, and that's okay. And I'm saying and prefacing it that way because this is something that took me many years to be able to do. Maybe you do it the first time. Good for you. You don't have to rub it in. So from here, I'm going to be rounding back into what would be a sort of rolling back like a ball shape, but I'm gonna bring one leg up at a time, alternating. For me, I'm bringing my hands to the side, but you could always reach for a leg. So I'm coming into that rounded and then the other leg. And I'm alternating. I'm getting that rounded as I lift and coming up to my upright position, my neutral-ish, and back. From there, if you'd like, I'm gonna kind of go back a little bit because I'm gonna round even more. We're gonna try to lift both legs and get that rounded and sit up. Lift both legs and come back. And lift both legs, maybe two more. And maybe last one. Oh. And then from here, we're going to see if we would have the space or the chair works appropriately, if you can kind of hold on to it and lift up and get some rocking with the chair. Maybe you can hold the legs up and add the rocking. And then coming back up. Ooh. So from here, I'm gonna attempt this sort of back bend with the chair moment. It might not be appropriate, that's okay. I'm using this to get some extension, looking up and then forward. Extending back up into my neutral-ish, extending. That might be enough. Maybe we don't even want to do that. Remember, that's always okay. I prefer people to opt out. That's just one of the best things ever. Do what works for you. So from here, I'm going to press in and I'm going to lift the hips up and then bring them back down. I'm lifting them up, I'm bringing them back down. This next one, I'm gonna go into the back bend. I'm lifting up, reaching and extending my spine, lowering back down. I'm not dropping my head because that doesn't work for my neck. I'm lifting from that front of the body. And then maybe one more. And then lower down. So if you'd like more to do, you can always check out my TikTok or Instagram at RAD Pilates, or check out my Patreon. I have this really awesome program called Slow Build, where you get to build the foundations for a sustainable Pilates practice that's all about focusing on how you feel as you move. So check those out, and there's gonna be more opportunities to do other movements soon. But let me know how you're feeling and what else you'd like to do.